Hi, this is Jason Montoya, and you're listening to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast.
Hello everybody, my name is Ian Taylor and you are listening to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast, your weekly digest of hobby goodness. I can see my guests adjusting their makeup as I speak. Brought to you by the Marvel Cards Fan Collective, an awesome community of card collectors and creators. You can find our two groups on Facebook, details of which are at the end of this podcast, so come check us out. With me as always is my Ready Player One. You may play it loud with Nintendo, but in here, it's a case of the more you play with it, the harder it gets. Yes, folks, we're reliving the halcyon days of my youth when I'd whip into my drawers and pull out my joystick for a quick waggle. Because it's time for some Sega! Isn't that right, Norin Rad?
Wow. It's just getting worse and worse and worse.
Worse and worse and worse. What
that is a weird intro. Yeah, I was just watching there was a video game documentary on Netflix that just came out, and they were just talking about Sega versus Nintendo and how that whole nemesis and that whole competition thing had gone before, but that is totally irrelevant. But anyway,
you're a Nintendo boy, aren't you?
I am a Nintendo man. Thank you very much, and a Sega, PlayStation. Yeah, I've played. I mean, you had that giant collection, but yeah, I did a lot of that stuff. I still play Nintendo, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, no, what I meant boy as in, well, that's just how we...
No, I was kidding. No.
Boy and man. I kind of got the feeling that it was in your DNA from your...
for sure.
In my experience, you're one or the other. And it's rarely do the streams cross. You either grew up with Sega or you grew up with Nintendo. In the same, I guess it could be said with DC and Marvel are very similar in that regard.
Yeah. I think you're right. I remember the X-Men on Sega. I don't know if you guys remember that, the X-Men game where yes, I love that. I miss that so much. Yeah, I remember that very well.
And then there was the Maximum Carnage game on Sega. Which
wow,
was very much like
I forgot about that.
It was very much like Streets of Rage, but it was Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
It's because just really just like you could whip and do stuff like that.
Enter in and then
pretty much, yeah. The reason I went there with that intro is a because I've been dying for an excuse to play the Sega startup sound on this podcast for years, and I've finally managed to do it. Secondly, our guest today. I'm guessing that he's on the Sega side of the fence, but given that he seems to be across every single property known to man in terms of the work that he does, he could very well surprise me here. Jason Montoya, Sega or Nintendo?
Both.
I knew it.
I am an old dog. I started on Atari. So I started Atari 2600, then got an NES. Played ColecoVision because a buddy of mine had one, and Intellivision. Then branched over into Sega Master System because a buddy had it. And then I got a Genesis and a Super Nintendo. I know we were just speaking about my dungeon here. I've got a Super Nintendo hybrid just over my shoulder here. I was just playing in between drawing cards, go and play a quick game. I've got a Genesis, Xbox, PS1 through what are we on now, 5 or whatever, so PS1
whatever we are
all in the other room on a TV in there. I've got a record player. Very analog guy, so I've got a lot of digital, but I've also got a lot of physical media floating around here in this dungeon, so a bit of both. In terms of my iconography and my logo and everything, that's Michael Mastermaker's fault. When I first got into cards, he had already done Warp Zone, and he had like a Nintendo theme. And for years upon years, started off as kind of a joke. Buddies of mine, speaking of Sega, we were playing Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. We had them on rotate, switch between one or the other. So we had Street Fighter on Super Nintendo because it was better, and we had Mortal Kombat on Sega Genesis because the blood was turned on and not turned off like on Super Nintendo. So we'd rotate back and forth. And a buddy of mine, he would sit there and crouch as Guile and wait to do a flash kick. And I'm a Sagat guy. I always play a Sagat. So I'd go over there, I'd just pound on him. He's like, "You're relentless." So when I first came up with a graphic design idea, this is high school, I went with Relentless Graphics. And then when I got into cards, and I started talking to Michael, I was like, "You kind of already got Nintendo." I was like, "Is it cool if I take Sega?" Yeah, I have your blessing. And he's like, oh, man, don't be crazy. Yeah, of course. So I rolled with it. Love ninjas, love robots, loved Shinobi. So I was like, hey, why not?
Nice.
Very nice indeed. I used to play Shinobi at the arcades back in fact, I remember very distinctly summer of 91. I could use a 10 pence coin, which is 15 cents. And I got to the point where I could put one of those in to the arcade machine opposite the theatre that I worked in, and I could get a good half-hour gameplay.
Oh, wow,
just out of that 110p. And I managed to get almost to the end of it. And then the summer season ended that I was working on. I was doing a 3-month stint at a theatre. Anyway, enough about my past. Jason Montoya, sir, the reason I mentioned that you're on everything, it seems, because you seem to be on everything. I'm looking at your Instagram feed that folks can find, Jason_Montoya_artist. And you have... When I scroll down it, I see you, well, not least of all your own card stock, which is very much the visuals of the kind of Sega, that black and white grid with sketch card Shinobi at the bottom, which I absolutely love. You're on all sorts of different properties. You're on Star Wars. You're on... what we got here? Did I see some DC floating around in here?
Yeah.
I saw some back to red. I got Masterwork here. I've got, which one's that? Is that Chrome? Which one's this? Sorry, you can't see.
Chrome.
Is that Battle Plan? No, Battle Plans.
Battle Plans, Chrome, Masterworks.
I don't know the sketch card stock that well enough to know. We got DC Comics Bombshells. I'm looking at here. So is there a property that you haven't been on as a sketch card artist that you really want to be on?
Probably. If there's a publisher out there and you're like, hey, I need this guy, hit me up. All joking aside, I've been on a lot. I've been very fortunate and very grateful for that opportunity. As we were alluding to, I'm kind of a pop culture junkie. Like I like everything. So I just always want to have the opportunity, if I can, to work on different properties. I'll meet a lot of people and they didn't necessarily get into sketch cards from get. It was almost kind of a back burner thing that I eventually naturally gravitated to. I wanted to do comics in the traditional sense, but I draw small and I draw fast, and my attention span is not what it could be for that. So I eventually segued over to cards, but I started off, what was it, like Series 1 Marvel Universe, probably, like just idolizing everybody that was on those, and following a lot of my favorite comic book artists to the card sets. And then Boris Vallejo, Julie Bell, Joe Jusko, the usual suspects that everybody talks about that they grew up idolizing. So I was like, how am I going to work? Am I ever going to be able to work, 5 up, 4 up, whatever it ends up being, and have them shrink it down to the card size? Sketch card thing really wasn't even an invented idea that I was aware of at that point, but always in the back of my brain, like, man, if I could just ever get onto some of these properties I grew up loving, that would be awesome. And so when that first offer came, and ever since then, I'm like, hey, I want to work on as many different things as I can. And there's a lot more coming down the pipeline that I can't really talk about, but there's a few more sets that I've recently signed on to that are different properties, shall we say. So
cool.
That's exciting.
So how long have you been? Well, let's rewind slightly. Are you Are you a full-time artist? I mean, is this your full-time gig, or do you do it like around are you like a doctor, a scientist, a chef, or something in the background?
I have another job, Monday through Friday, as they say. Have the entire time. In fact, I've changed careers a couple of times. I have a graphic design degree. So I've done freelance graphic design here locally in Colorado, so for different firms. Funny enough is when they first passed the bill to legalize marijuana, I did a lot of green crosses for people because they wanted that on business cards. So that helped out with some side money. But I've always tried to have a regular day job just because as independent contractors, I mean, we're not getting insurance working on the card sets. If there's an artist out there doing it, let me know how you pulled that off. I would love to be a full-time artist. That would be amazing, but it's just not in the cards.
So to speak.
So to speak, pun intended.
Yeah. So when did you start? I mean, how did you start? I mean, did you start in a bigger format and then end up on cards, or what was the journey into being an artist?
Well, I started off doing more like studying graphic design. So I started studying typography and all of those types of things since high school. And I couldn't decide whether I wanted to be an engineer, like drafting engineer, drawing, parts and that kind of thing, because there was money to be made there, or an architect because there was money to be made there. But I'm not the steadiest guy. I'm a left-hander. I go across the page, I smear. Attention span's not there. So after I did it for a little while, I was like, probably not going to do either one of these things. I'm a nerd for logos. So I'd always study, like, hey, that fast food joint just changed. And now that color's, 0.2 whatever off. They didn't kern that properly. It looks funny or whatever. I was that guy. So I wanted to go into graphic design, and I got my degree and everything. And it's cutthroat. I mean, if you get in with a firm, awesome. Then you're in there for life. You're doing some major stuff. But my heart was always on the nerd stuff. I want to be able to draw superheroes. I want to be able to draw robots, ninjas, video games. I want to do that. And not a lot of people are going to pay you to be a little kid still, because I've never fully grown up. As middle-aged as I am a little kid. So I started looking into comics, like trying to send in submissions, seeing how I could self-publish, what could I do. And a buddy of mine that I've known since junior high school, and I started self-publishing. So we've done a couple of titles. He's a novelist, so he's written books. And we took his characters and kind of brought them into the graphic world. And then I created a character, and we kind of did that for a little while. We're coming up on 10 years of working together on those on the side. And then he started getting into anthologies and different horror themed books, and kind of started doing that about the time that I fell into finally my niche, which is cards.
Wow. Okay.
That's phenomenal. That's so cool.
I love the we've spoken to a few people who've got their own kind of character things going on. I'm just trying to think of what Jalen Warner's is called. Mighty Moose. I think it's Mighty Moose.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, because I saw he was at con recently, and I think he was sharing a space with Greg from Rebel Base Card podcast.
Yeah, I saw that. He was actually on G.I. Joe at one point, because he and I had a conversation. We were doing a live drawing session with Dre. Oh, wow. And we were talking about all the G.I. Joe cards that I've drawn. And he was like, oh, yeah, I've inked on G.I. Joe. I think he said he inked. And I was like, wow. Like, you've been in the big leagues, so to speak, and whatever. And he kind of, Jalen's funny. So he kind of laughed it off. But I was like impressed. But there's a lot of guys in there. They've worked on all these different properties and these different things. So I'm just in awe of them. You have the conversations with them and hear the stories, and it's like, wow, okay. I didn't know you had worked on that. Or if you did, you're just blown away by the fact that they did that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. I see G.I. Joe is not on my radar at all. It's not really big over here, really. But I know George Vega, who he had on as a guest, he does loads of G.I. Joe stuff. I'm always seeing it on his feed, like blank covers and things like that. So yeah. So what was your first Marvel set? When did you get into Marvel?
Spider-Man: Homecoming. 2017 was when I came in. Okay. Right around the same time as Paul Hill. So we've kind of been buddies for a long time, because we came in around the same time. We started doing Webhead Wednesdays together. And then, I'm a Hulk guy, so I kind of coaxed him into doing Hulk Smash Saturdays with me. And we got a whole bunch of people to join both cults, which I'm grateful for. So we've been cranking those cards out on those respective days. So
rewind. Explain that for people who don't know what that is and where they can find that.
Yeah, so on Instagram, he and I just started talking. He's very Batman the Animated Series themed in some of his, origins, so to speak, and also Spider-Man the Animated Series. And we started talking about it, and he was like, some of these character designs are beautiful. We never get to draw them on the card sets. Looking past the curtain there with the Wizard of Oz, they just won't let us do it. We can't necessarily draw likenesses on a lot of the Marvel properties, whereas the Star Wars properties, it's expected. Like, hey, you need to try and get as close to this person's likeness as possible. And so when you have that, and you have this wealth of backstory with Marvel in particular, of all the different animation types that they've tried over the years, semi-realistic, kind of a Hanna-Barbera looking thing in the beginning there, where they had like the Grantry Lawrence stuff from the 60s, which I absolutely love that Spider-Man show from the 60s. It's great. We all grew up with those, whether it be on Saturday morning or after school or what have you. So he and I kicked around the idea. We started talking, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to start doing a thing called Webhead Wednesday. I think a lot of other people are doing it, but we can kind of tune it ourselves to Spider-Man the Animated Series. So that's how we started. I didn't have personal stock at the time, and I think we were just like, hey, in between sets, let's just bang out as many as we can, and we'll both post them, and you tag me in it, and I'll share. So I would tag him in it, and he would share it on his feed. And then I told him, I was like, I kind of feel like old J Jaws needs some love. I'm going to start doing that on Saturdays. Is that cool? And he's like, yeah, I'll kick in on that as well. And then fast forward to now, we've got several cohorts that join us on both, and we just post those. And I'm kind of like hashtag master. I've had a couple of people laugh at me and tell me, you're hashtag master. Because I like so many different properties, I started drawing Masters of the Universe quite a bit, and got kind of a following there where people are like, hey, you should draw this character. You should draw this character. So I started doing Mo2 Monday. So I was drawing obscure characters, toy lines that were made in other countries that were kind of knockoff or bootleg toy lines, which led to me doing some work with some folks that make custom toys, which is really cool. So I did some of the backing art for their projects as well. So then I kept doing Mo2 Mondays. Then I found out there was a Marvel Monday. There's a Mutant Monday. So I jumped on those. Tuesdays, I started doing Transformer Tuesdays because I wanted to draw more Transformers. Then I started doing Terradrome Tuesdays, which is the G.I. Joe reference. So I was doing that intermittently. Still had Webhead Wednesday. Thursday, we came up with Tonka Thursday because the company Tonka imported GoBots. Okay. I need an excuse to draw other robots. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to do Tonka Thursday and then Turtle Thursday. So we started doing TMNT off and on. And then Friday, I started doing Super Friday because I did a couple Superman pieces because how we were talking earlier about how you're either kind of in the Marvel camp or the DC camp. I'm one of those guys I'm in the everybody camp. Huge Superman fan. So I started drawing. I had one person contact me. He was a fan of my work, which I really appreciate. Anytime anybody's a fan of my work, obviously. But we had a shared interest in like Silver Age Superman stuff. A lot of the stuff that some Marvel fans are like, oh man, I hate all those stories. That's the funnest stuff. It's just makes no sense. It's whimsical. He wanted villains and heroes from that whole thing. He would just commission me at random. This week I think I'll have you do Mixus Pitlick. I'll have you do Brainiac. Okay. So that turned into Super Friday. So I started doing DC properties on Fridays. I was already doing Hulk Smash Saturday. And then I was like, I don't have any image going on here. I'm going to do Spawn Sunday. So Webhead Wednesday branched into 7 days a week. Basically.
Yeah. You are busy man. That's amazing.
I was going to say, wow. That escalated quickly.
Much to my wife's chagrin.
That's just have you heard the song by Craig David where he goes, took her for a drink on Monday, we were having like that one? I'm going to play that at the end of the show, just because I want to, because it seems to sum it up really. Either that or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, love Sunday, Monday. You ever heard that song, Norrin?
Yeah. Have you heard that song, Norrin?
Who is that?
Yes, Sparks. Is that Sparks?
Yes, I think it is. Yes. There we go.
Pretty good.
Well done.
Pretty good.
Well done.
I just saw the documentary. I had no idea who they were beforehand, but I just saw that. Yeah.
We've got a number of copyright breaches we can establish at the end of the
Sure. Yeah. You're the whole episode is gonna be heard like this. So everybody, and that's it. That's gonna be the whole show.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm You're like a one-man universal translator of pop culture. It's great.
That's awesome. Can I copyright that? And put that
you can have that. You can have that for free. Awesome. Stick it on a T-shirt.
That's an Instagram bio right there.
I can see a Marvel logo on your T-shirt. Tell me what's below. Oh, it's just the Marvel comics. All right, okay. I wasn't sure.
McFarlane Spider-Man is underneath that. So that's one of my influences there. Like came in there, left-handed guy, and I'm like, hey, I'm left-handed. I don't like playing by the rules. I like this guy. And it was the '90s. I mean, if you could figure out certain artists, and I hate to be a left-handist in regards to stuff because Mark's like, really, are you talking about that again? But it really is a thing. It's like. I don't know, it's a different world, so to speak. And I just spot people like, I'm like, hey, left-handed. left-handed, watching TV, left-handed. She kind of laughs at me. But I kind of latched onto that. I was like, hey, there's a couple of guys out there that are left-handed, and I could see it in their work. And so then you start paying a little more attention, like, oh, wow, cool. Because they might have tight line work, but most of the time it's, nice and loose and fast. And that's how I do. My line work is very minimal. My wife even knows now, like, okay, rough lines, and he's going to hit it with the color and his depth. Contrast is kind of where I found is my, I don't even know if you want to call it trademark, because I don't obviously own a trademark on it, but everybody's kind of known for something. Sometimes they'll have, it's my sweet spot. Like people know, oh, it's high contrast. Maybe he did that. That and my signature are usually the two things where people are like, hey, I know that guy.
I'm glad you mentioned that, actually. But before we go on to your signature, what's the expression in boxing when someone's left-handed? Is it southpaw?
Southpaw.
Southpaw. There we go. So
on one of my self-published comics, the editor was Lefty Niwot. Niwot is a Native American tribe here in Colorado, the chief of which was left-handed. I think I had like Southpaw Jones or something like that. Like they were all left-handed references because I was doing. It was kind of like how Prince was like Jamie Starr and he was producing everybody at one point. And they're like, who is this Jamie Starr? It was really him. I was doing everything on the books. I was lettering, I was coloring, I was inking, whatever. Well, I can't really say color because they were black and white, but I did a lot of the cover work. So I was putting all these different people that they did it, but it was just me being
that's cool
and weird. So yeah, the signature came from I worked with a lady. She is from Japan, and we were talking one day because she was watching me way back when. Oh, I don't know. I was probably early 20s. I worked in a semiconductor factory with her, and we would have to load these machines, and you had a wand where you'd load them. Well, the way that the machines were set up, sometimes it was more awkward to be left or right-handed depending on what furnace. Well, I'm almost ambidextrous. I'm pretty close. So I could flip and I could load right-handed and then flip and load left-handed. So that led to her and I having a conversation because you'd have people come over and double-check your load. You'd load wafers, some kind of wafers that they would cut the semiconductors out of into these machines. And she came over to double-check me and she's like, oh, you're left-handed. She's like, when I was a little girl, a lot of the times they would try and correct that, or they wouldn't have taught you katakana, which is, writing in Japan in that particular script. And I was like, that's interesting. And she's like, yeah, let me show you. And she just started kind of writing some things down. We had like these little tablets because we were in a clean room. So we had clean room paper and we had little Sharpie markers. And she started writing some of the alphabet down. And I was like, that is really cool. I was like, I'm not a big numbers guy. I'm the worst at math. I call it MAFF. I see shapes. So, that's why I look at my wife. I'm like, hey, how much should I charge for this? Because I'm not good at the math. And she just laughs at me. Anyway, I saw the shapes and I was like, that is beautiful. Do you think you could show me how to write that? And she's like, yeah, I just wrote your name right here. That's how you write your first name right there. So I started practicing it and that became my signature as kind of a tribute to her and a tribute to being left-handed. And in the 80s, they had these little smelly erasers. I don't even know I call them erasers, but they're pencil holders. And they would try and break you out of the habit of, because I hold my pencil like this. I rest on my, third finger?
Yeah.
It's all worn out there. Wow. You can see from markers. And teachers are trying to correct me to write more like a right-hander, where I'm holding the pencil properly, in quotations. So, yeah, us having that conversation about how when she was a little girl, they probably would have tried to make me write right-handed or learn a different way in order to write in school. Now, obviously, they don't do that anywhere, but it used to be a thing. I was like, this is kind of a cool thing, differentiates me, because before that I was just signing in cursive, and left-handers hate cursive. I hate cursive. And if you ever see me writing anything, it's all caps and it's in print.
Yeah.
So everybody always thinks I'm yelling at them. Why are you yelling at me when you're writing? I'm not. That's how I write. I don't like doing the little letters. So even on my email addresses and things, if I write them down for people, they're like, is it all caps? Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's all lowercase.
Yeah. To be honest with you, the email addresses is one of the common things. People think it matters. It doesn't. With web addresses and email addresses, it doesn't matter at all. You could send it; it'll be absolutely fine. Now, I'm just looking at your signature here on a piece that you did for T. Breyer Unique Vampire set, and it's really interesting and clear. I've often wondered about what it was I was seeing. I knew it was your kind of mark, as it were, but it reminded me of it's an artist called Stephen Miller, who's no longer active in cards, whose work I'm sure you've seen, but he's very much a fan of, and indeed if you go to his website you'll see his work is very much a Japanese style, very fine lines, beautiful, and his signatures are very similar kind of vibe going on to it.
I almost wore a Mazinger t-shirt today, and I was like, I remember how much you gave Paul the business for rocking some DC stuff. So I was like, we're not doing that today. We're going to wear some Marvel. I came in at the time for Japanese super robots, like as a little kid. Mazinger Z and like Getter Robo and Great Radine and all these giant robots. I fell in love with them as a little kid, and they had the jumbo Machinders where they were like the giant plastic robots. I've got a couple of them in the other room on top of my shelving in there. So I got into that pretty early. I was like, oh, look at all these robots. And a lot of artists don't like drawing robots. I love drawing robots and mechs and suits and things like that. So that was kind of a gateway anyway. It just all kind of played out. It just kind of worked out that way.
All roads led to here.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's a conversation I had with my wife. She's like, you beat your head against the wall. I tried to do fine art. I didn't like watercolor at first, but now because of the Copics and because of doing the work that we did, I became somebody that loved watercolor. So there for a while, I was just, everything was watercolor. You see these people do acrylics, and I learned to airbrush because a lot of the early card sets that I saw, I'm like, wow, look at how they did with the airbrush. So I tried to get a job doing t-shirts at the mall at one point in the 90s, if I'm not dating myself even further here. I showed up with a McFarlane Spider-Man, oddly enough. Oh, it was probably like, I don't even know, 24 by 36, like a poster turned sideways, that I had airbrushed all the webs and all of the, everything behind them, the buildings and the whole thing. And the lady was like, can you do cursive though? And I'm like, oh, yeah, kinda. Not the biggest fan. It was down to me and another guy, and I mean, he ran circles around me. He was probably in his 40s at that point and could just go. So I didn't end up getting that job, but
That's hilarious. Well, Patelis, Dimitris, right? He's airbrush, right? Isn't that right? From 95?
I'm going to nod. I've got no idea. We've not been fortunate enough to speak to him yet, and I'm not that familiar with different styles to know what I see when I see it, if that makes sense.
Let me make sure.
His stuff certainly looks different to the other guys, that's for sure.
This is a really popular thing now, like Bianca Thompson does airbrush.
Yeah, Bianca does.
There's a lot of people that do colored pencil now on a lot of the Star Wars sets, and then they'll hit it with airbrush, and it just looks gorgeous. I'd love to do it, but I'm so sloppy. I mean, I'd end up with ink everywhere. I mean, I still airbrush every once in a while. I've got a compressor sitting, I don't know, about 2 feet from me here, next to an old Nintendo Wii box that's on the floor for some random reason. But yeah, I mean, I still dabble, but I'm more, once I got into the markers and just them drying as quickly as they do being alcohol based with the Copics, it kind of hit the sweet spot because I could go in layers. Because I kind of already look at things in layers with the depth and the contrast, trying to get volume into my work. I'm like, hey, I can create this light source and just I see the finished picture and just go at that point.
Wow.
So that helps with the with getting the cards done, because I'm like, oh, okay, it should look like this. And then I finish it, and sometimes I'm like, not quite what I intended. But most of the time, it comes out fairly close. And then I'm always trying to tweak it. Deadline. Next card, move on. And I think that's been really helpful for me too, is that cards usually have a tight deadline. So that keeps you from going, oh, I can hit this one more time. Nope, you're done. Got other stuff to work on.
So what's been like your highest count on one particular set that you've done?
I've done a few where I was 120-ish range, I'd say.
Wow.
Yeah, the Rick and Morty sets that I did for Cryptozoic, those were all 120s, all 3 sets for season 1, 2, and 3.
Beast.
A couple of the Marvel sets have been 120. But usually I stick to 30 if I can, somewhere around in there, just so then I can juggle different sets all at once.
Yeah, so you can be at different properties. That's smart. Yeah, I was looking at your page, which you're okay, buddy. I can't believe I wasn't following you. I don't know how that happened. I was looking at through my friends. I was like, I know I've seen Jason's work multiple times. But I was looking through it and I saw that you did Allure recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a fun set to work on.
Wolverine looks great, man. Everything looks good. I mean, everything looks good, period. But you did Masterworks as well for Star Wars. It's so interesting to see you doing Allure too. I mean, that's really fascinating. So do you primarily stick to that kind of marker style? Have you messed with other styles anyway? Like, did you work on anime and decide to do something a little different there?
Yeah. First off, I appreciate you enjoying the work. Of course. Like I said, that means a lot to me. Anime, I went all in on anime. I did kind of an anime style. Like I deliberately switched styles and drew in an anime style.
That's so cool.
I'm a huge horror fan in terms of gothic horror, like 70s Marvel horror. That's kind of how I introduced my wife to stuff, was like goofy sci-fi 50s DC stuff and 70s Marvel horror, to kind of give her a range. Like, here, look at how cool this stuff is. Because I'm almost 10 years older than her. So it was kind of like, here, let me introduce you to this stuff that you haven't seen before. She ate it right up. She was like, oh, this is right in my wheelhouse. And, started reading and getting into the characters and being more involved in that. And so I try and sneak 70s Marvel characters in that are horror related. Sometimes they don't make it, shall we say. I'll try and get them in there. I'll do a Dracula here or there, or Werewolf by Night. So I grew up on a lot of that stuff because as a kid, they kind of encouraged me. I had an uncle that was just graduating high school. He wasn't that much older than me. And so, we'd go and there's a spinner rack at 7-Eleven and he's like, what do you want to get? This guy. Nah, don't tell your grandma. And he'd get whatever. And I'm like, reading this stuff. Oh, look at this werewolf. Look at this vampire. And that's kind of where I started. So like a lot of the stuff that I did initially was horror themed. And then you look at, like Don Perlin, or you look at Gene Cologne, a lot of these artists that are on those early works. I started trying to emulate that first. And then you get into the 80s and you've got, Alan Davis and Art Adams and John Byrne and all these people. So I started kind of, I'll tweak my style that way. And then, the 90s happened and everybody's doing image. And it's like, okay, let's try and do kind of an imagey style or whatever. So I've transitioned through different things. I like more of a classic style. So I've tried to get to a happy medium between classic and the way I see things, and still have enough of that anime reference, because I've drawn so many cartoons.
Right.
Where people are like, hey, have you ever drawn this particular toy franchise? Because I'm a huge toy collector. We were kind of talking about that. So I sneak stuff in based on that. I'm like, hey, how did this look in the animation? I don't want it to look so different when I transition it into my style. So a long-winded answer to your question, I've tried to encapsulate enough things that if I need to swing one way or another in particular, I can do that.
That's amazing. I mean, versatility, right? That's a huge strength of an artist, and to be able to do that. I think anime was really fun for a lot of artists because it gave them this little, you know what I mean? I mean, I know a lot of people were at first like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing the chibi. I remember people saying funny stuff like that.
Not me.
But I think, yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. Right. Well, yeah, you liking the chibi, but I remember hearing, I don't think it was Warner, it was somebody else who was saying, I don't want to do chibis. I don't know, man. Who mentioned it to me. But I think that anime was really good for a lot of Marvel card artists because it gave this kind of like different style. And I was talking about this somewhere else recently, but older sketch cards really allowed you to have your own style in them. You know what I mean? Really, like, Katie Cook, right? Style was very, very different back in the day. Not different as her style now, but she could actually have that style in sketch cards. I don't know if so much you get a lot of that now, unless it is through a set like anime, unfortunately, having that kind of, original take to your own style and bringing in fun things like that. Because, Marvel's and Star Wars now, especially Star Wars with their hyperrealism kind of like, guides and so forth, you don't really get a lot of ability to be creative with what style you bring to Star Wars. You know what I mean? Hopefully that kind of changes with Marvel and Star Wars in the future, and you could have that kind of ability, you know what I mean, to see different styles and stuff. But I think it's awesome that you've been able to do that.
I agree wholeheartedly. No, there's definitely certain guidelines. And sometimes that being constrained in the guidelines, like them saying, okay, these are things you can and cannot do, is great for creativity, because you're like, okay, how am I going to pull this off? Like in my mind, this has a very 70s look, and if I were lighting this based on colors in the background, it would be more of a blue tone. They don't want that blue tone on that particular character because it's, you know, out of context for the character. Can't do it. And I think that's kind of why we started doing all the hashtag stuff. Like I was like, oh, well, I'm going to do it this way, but I'm drawing Firestar, Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends style on my own time, because I want to. So yeah, I think we kind of use it as an outlet. Like that's where you vent on paper, so to speak, where it's like, I really wanted to draw this take on this character. Like if you were to want to draw, I don't even know, like an Al Williams style 70s Darth Vader, and kind of make it a fun bluish color, like it was on the old 4-panel where they're laying down like the plates, where it's got colors. I'm going to do this even more of a magenta and slightly off just to make it look 70s. I can't do that. On my stock, I can. That's kind of where I started kicking around the idea of the stock, and I saw people doing so many different kinds of stock. Like I've got a Masters of the Universe stock I started with now, and then the Sega stock. But I've seen people do like Pro Set football cards. There were particular Pro Sets years where people just loved them, and then they did a lot of the Impel Marvel stuff like early on, so they will do it where it looks just like it. I've seen cons do that too, announcing guests, and then they'll give away cards with like the artist's face on it, and then on the back it'll have kind of like a bio of the sets they worked on and stuff. So that got my juices flowing to go, okay, what am I going to do? What'll be different? And that's how I landed on doing the Sega business cards first, and they're the exact shape of and size of the sticker on an original Sega card. So if you ever have one of my business cards, you line it up, you could put it on the cartridge and it would look like it was the sticker.
That's hilarious.
But in doing that, a buddy of mine, I have a lot of friends here in Colorado where I live that own comic book stores. I've been fortunate enough to make friends with a lot of people that are retailers. So I can kind of have a bug in their ear and say, well, what's selling? What's popular? What's cool? What characters are you seeing a kind of an interest in? So I try and work that in along with my weird tastes of, I'm sneaking in the 70s Marvel horror guy, or I'm sneaking in, nobody knows this guy. He's kind of a Mort. He's like 5th tier. I try and sometimes I'll boggle some of the other artists because they're like, who are you going to do now? And I'm like, well, this guy's like 5th tier. Like you'd have to have an out of print Marvel universe from 82 to find this guy. Then he was in the dead version in 86 or 87. You know, he's long since passed. I'll draw him and see if he'll go, oh, he made it. Yes, the guy's weird looking. So I'll kind of put a bug in their ear. And one of my buddies that owns one of the shops, he's like, you need to just take that Sega thing and make a card out of it. He's like, I don't know why you didn't do that to begin with. So all credit to him. I was like, you know what? It's time. Let me just go ahead and do it. And so far the response has been pretty positive. I've only had those out for maybe 2 months, month and a half.
Oh, wow. For some reason, they feel like they've been around for longer, but I guess it feels like such a good fit.
Yeah, the blog has been a couple years. I've had that on my blog. I've had that on my page. So the iconography's been there, but the cards themselves, recent. It's a recent edition. I think it was Free Comic Book Day was the first time I really started using them. So, and that was at his shop. You know, I was like, hey, buddy, you get the first card out of it. And I gave him a card I had done for him. He's a huge Venom and Carnage guy. So I was like, here you go. And then I've been trying to fill them up ever since.
Wow, that's so cool.
Cool. I love it. What's your in terms of Marvel then, what's your most recent ones that you can think of that you class as quite obscure that you've been dropping in, or characters that you wish you could drop in but you haven't yet done so? There's a little pop quiz for you, because I'm all about the thing is while you think about that, I'm always amazed. We have a friend who's got an encyclopedic knowledge of X-Men, Brandon, and so whenever anyone's got an issue with what character it is, he'll know, oh yeah, it was in this storyline and it was this thing and it'll be issue, and he'll just reel it off like this. Yeah. And I don't believe he's sitting there with Dr. Google, because he's often at work. So it's quite frightening how he does it. But when it comes to X-Men, I know you can go really deep. You know, I tend to gravitate more towards Spider-Man because that's my thing. But you can get some really obscure references coming in there. And we've seen a few artists doing that to keep things fresh as well.
There's some crazy ones in there. Trying to think. I mean, I had White Rabbit and Kangaroo on one Spider-Man set. I mean, I don't know. I've done some pretty obscure ones. I'm trying to think. In terms of ones I've done, I mean, like Angar the Screamer. How fun would that be to sneak that guy in there? He's weird.
He's weird.
Like the Morts. Like whenever somebody's like, that guy's a total Mort. Why was he even in an episode or an issue or on that particular whatever it is? It could be an annual that was released somewhere else that we didn't even see in the States, and somebody will pull it up and I'm like, that color scheme is awesome. Why is that so weird? There's a lot of them I wish I could just do. I have a buddy of mine that's we call him the Transformer Rain Man because it's the same kind of a thing. Do you remember what series this particular Transformer came out? And he's like, and he'll know the year, the time it was released, the different variants, the different countries, what weapons it came with. And you're just like, wow. And he doesn't even have a phone in his hand or anything. He just rattles it off. And you're like, dude, I can't. I filled my brain with all these other things like paying bills and stuff. I don't know how you do that. I'm trying to think because I know there's a bunch. Particularly with Spider-Man, I mean, we've had all these conversations about, who has the best rogues gallery. And I'm saying Batman, Spider-Man are right there at the top, and the Flash have like amazing villains. X-Men's there for sure. Like those are probably the four best in the conversations I've had with people because they'll pull somebody like it's a random character. It does the same thing as this other character, but the costume's different. The appearances have been different. The way that it's handled is different. So those are usually where I try and go. And like I said, I try and work in the weird Hulk stuff. Like I've gotten Mike East in on a few sets. I've gotten Zach's in on a few sets. Always try and sneak the leader in when I can. Everybody always wants Abomination, so I'll get him in there. Harpy, I've done on my own set, like my own stock, but I haven't snuck her in there yet. I'd love to do Harpy. That would be fun. Jarella, like Princess Jarella from that whole time when Hulk got shrunk down and was miniaturized and fell in love, and that was a fun storyline. I think I was a little kid.
Man. Goodness,
that's
this is all over my head. I should have.
I was gonna say that's when you started saying more of Spidey or X-Men. I mean, like I said, I'm a Hulk guy, so that's kind of where I go. Zenmu. I mean, they did build a figure of him, and I was like, wow, really?
Yeah, there's a Marvel Legends card of him. That's hilarious.
That's super cool. Like I never thought I'd see him, in anything, much less a figure of him. So, Armadillo. I saw that they made a figure of him.
I'm like, I don't know why I know that. But yeah.
So there's a bunch out there.
There's a bunch out there. Well, there's a lot of Hulk Marvel sets, actually, funny enough, which I'm going through the checklist now for other reasons. And I saw like they've done Incredible Hulk. They've done a lot of Hulk sets, actually, more than I thought, movie ones and comic publishing ones. And they're beautiful cards, gorgeous cards. Doesn't get a lot of play, but they're there.
Yeah, I was going to say he's not. I mean, he's a popular character, but he's not front.
He's not like the right. He's also not like it's not. Whenever you think of the big worlds, you think Spider-Man, X-Men. Hulk is like 3 or 4 down in a strange way, but there's a lush storyline, lush everything about Hulk that's not really advertised a lot, which is interesting.
I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it was a documentary I was watching where they say that I want to say it was like where you're 10 or 12, something like that. Up until your 10th or 12th birthday, the way that you encounter certain mythologies determines your worldview on those mythologies in particular. So like in terms of a pop culture, like if that was your timestamp, let's say you came in on the 89 Batman movie, for an example, that's going to be your Batman. Like anything that came out around that time, you came, Sam Raimi Spider-Man, everything around that time frame is going to be your take on the character, pop culturally speaking. I came in Lou Ferrigno Hulk, so maybe that's why. But when I was a kid, it was Hulk and Spider-Man and Captain America were your big three for Marvel. They were on your pajamas, they were on your lunch boxes, they were on everything. DC always had their Trinity, and then there would be a fourth player. So it would be Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash for a couple years. Then it was Shazam for a couple years. So I'm a big Captain Marvel guy. I don't like calling him Shazam. I hate that. But they would it drives me nuts. I'm like, that's Captain
great.
Marvel. But they bring in a fourth person. Marvel sometimes had a fourth person, so to speak. Barely. But it would usually be like a property,
Yeah. It was I remember
Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I remember seeing Like, it's funny. I was looking up something like shirts or whatever, because Target always has like the rotating shirts, right? And I just saw it recently. Like, they had a shirt with 4 characters on it, and I think it was Iron Man, because the MCU movies, Spider-Man. It wasn't Hulk. It was probably Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Man, and I just can't remember the 4th one. But you're right. There is this kind of rotation that occurs there for sure. It's happened with Surfer. Like, if you were born in the 70s, Surfer was on that rotation. Like, I've seen a lot of 70 T-shirts where Surfer pops in there. That's so funny. That's interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, like we were talking about, I mean, I pop culture, I study it. Like, it's a thing. Yeah. Just because my brain's always obsessed with, I mean, this is our modern mythology. This is kind of what we came up looking into. And Surfer there for a while. Doctor Strange in the 70s.
Doctor Strange,
a 4th one. And so that's where my love of that character came from. It's like, oh, cool. He was one of the guys that always got along with the Hulk for a while there until the Illuminati stuff. But, it's I love
team-ups, man. I love the team-ups.
The
team-ups are the best.
Yeah,
don't get me started on team-ups.
I love it's great. I mean, honestly, I was just looking at, because a friend of mine is obsessed about it, this card from, I guess it's Fleer Ultra, with Spider-Man and Wolverine on it. But Fleer Ultra was very good set for team-up cards. They even did it in 2017. I don't know what it is. There's always this really cool thing that happens when you see characters teaming up with characters from the other universes around them. I even loved it when it happened on the animated series, because every once in a while you would see Iron Man come in and you're like, oh shoot, what's Iron Man doing here?
That's what Marvel have always really done, is that there is this awareness of a bigger universe. I remember when I was saying, when we were talking to Ingrid about my first American Spider-Man comics that I bought, 3 months worth.
Oh, that's right, the Web Sensational.
Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spectacular, and Amazing, Spectacular, and Web. Yeah, 3 of them. And for about 3 months, I was able to get all 3 issues for some reason. I don't know why. I think they were so random when they would come into. We didn't have like spinner racks as you guys did. It was hit and miss as to whether they'd load the comics onto a boat that would make it to the UK to be distributed to shops. I mean, that was literally what it is. Here's a little random fact here. I've got some issues here which are really low grade of key issues, and I got them at the time because they were affordable. Now they're, not so many of them around. They're called ballast copies, because they would be the bundle of comics. You think about when they come out the printers, they're in these big stacks, and they're literally like with these like bands around them, and they're loaded on like newspapers get delivered. And the ballast copies would be the ones at the bottom of the boat that got a bit of water on them, so they're often water damaged. So you can get what's called ballast copies that are water damaged copies, but you can get some really key issues at an affordable price. So my Amazing Spider-Man 121, 122, Death of Gwen and Death of Green Goblin, are ballast copies, which which I got for a good price back in the day, because they were just a little bit rippled. They're dried out and they're readable. The pages open. They're just But anyway,
in that top condition.
Sorry, that was a real side quest. But that whole universe things. But there's been quite a few characters who've had issues. So the main one everyone will be aware is Marvel Team Up, which was basically Spider-Man and another. So it would either be a new person because they were trying someone out, but they're doing less of the tryout stuff in the 80s. The tryout stuff was like Marvel Premiere and stuff in the 70s. And then you had Marvel 2-in-1, which was a thing, plus another. You had Marvel Comics Presents, which was primarily Wolverine, but you had runs where it was either Colossus as the main one or Hawkeye as the main one. That was a real hodgepodge and mishmash. And I love those because I don't, I don't and can't afford to and haven't got room to have runs of Thor, have runs of Fantastic Four, and actually both of those I think I find quite boring to read personally. I didn't get into them. Iron Man, for the same reasons. Avengers, it's kind of okay if you're into Avengers, you kind of got that crossover anyway, to some degree with the X-Men. And then Defenders was great because that was kind of a rotating thing, but you could buy one issue and get a real taste of everything that was happening in the Marvel world from Marvel Team Up, which is why I love it, because it's Spider-Man plus someone else. Right, it's great.
That's really cool. I forgot about that.
You both kind of set the ball there for me, using a volleyball term. In terms of team up books, I mean, World's Finest, over DC, Superman and Batman. I mean, as a kid, I loved that book. And the Marvel ones, I mean, you were talking about, the Thing's always been one of my favorite characters, and the way he interacts with people. So 2-in-1, I mean, I've got the essentials sitting here, but 2-in-1, all the Marvel team up books, and the way I got into having any sort of comics, there was a place, it was called Solo's Bike Shop. It was about 2 blocks from my great grandmother's house. He would have books where the covers had been ripped off, or there's a page missing, that kind of thing. That's where I got the bulk of my comics when I was a teenager, or not even a teenager, when I was in elementary school. So 8, 9 years old. I think I got my She-Hulk #1 from him. There's a bunch of comics that I got from him, specifically similar to the Ballast, where they were just, these were on the top, it got ripped, I'm selling them for a dime. Well, I'll take an entire stack of those and a whole bunch of Jolly Ranchers, and I'll see you later. And I was off to the races. I mean, I had to go find a place to read, and Marvel Universe. That's where I got a lot of these marts from, is reading those Marvel Universes and seeing, all of exactly what you're talking about. It was interweaved. This character interacted with this character. Now he's fighting his villains for these 2 issues. And I just absorbed all of it, just reading it and this guy crossed over. He was in Captain America, but he's usually a Spider-Man villain. Awesome. And just kind of, I mean, that's where I got them. They were all coverless comics. I was buying them for a penny or a dime a piece, depending on what he was selling them for. And that's where the stack came from. And I read them. That's what they were for. So now sometimes when I meet people and they're like, I had that issue and it's 9, 8 or what, and I'm like, I remember reading it, smelling it. Yeah, like, my friends and I are weird. My wife always laughs. We'll pick it up and just smell the book. And she's like, I almost bought you a candle. Apparently there's a candle scent out there now that smells like 70s newsprint. Wow. And she's like, I might buy some of that for your basement so that you can just have that smell flowing around.
That'd be a good smell, though.
And I'm like, that's a beautiful idea,
Or have it as like a shape, like those Christmas tree pine things, but in the shape of a comic book. Just hang them around the office. See, that's the way to do it.
Now you're talking. I think it's one of those candles that comes in a tin. Like, it's got bang, pow, biff, all the noises on it.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. She's kicking around the idea. I might have to see if she still has. I don't know if it's on Etsy or where she saw it, but she's like, smells like old newsprint. Because that's the first thing we'll do. If she's with me and my friends, we'll go to a con or something. And it's like, okay, we've been drawing or talking for hours. I'm going to get up and kind of walk. I go and I go, and I just smell like, wow. Look at this book. It's like, oh, wow. And then your brain goes back to those, torn off covers and Sunday afternoons, or even in the summer, sitting there in a tree house or in the grass or something, and crab apples and candy, and reading those comics and just going, wow, I never knew that guy fought Daredevil too. I wonder who would win in a fight between. And that's your conversation for Monday.
That's the conversation. I love it. Well, even in the 90s, and you said they have Spider-Man Presents. They put a whole insert set where Spider-Man's interviewing the different characters. Mm-hmm. Like, Marvel's always been really good about that. No, I love that stuff so much. I remember smelling all those comic books all the time. I mean, I was always looking. I was pretty obsessed with Surfer straight out the gate. I don't even know. I don't understand. It just hit the nerve. Like, I was reading the book, and it was a Ron Lim Surfer. I think it was issue 75 or 74. And I remember the issue. Surfer's on the front cover, and he's being fought by Captain Atlas and Dr. Minerva. And the opening pages is Surfer sitting by a lake, and all these animals are around him, and it's just really peaceful. And he's just waxing poetic about being able to kind of exist in this kind of quiet moment, and then chaos breaks out, right? He's not wanting to fight, but they keep forcing him to fight. And I just remember that it just hit a nerve with me. And I was just like, man, this is so I don't know, it just felt I felt really close to the character there. And all of a sudden it was just this kind of like looking at all these old issues and going to comic book stores. And I was like 7 or 8. I forget now. Yeah, that's it. The original cover is purple. I think that's the reprint. But I love that issue. Yeah, the purple one. 79. There you go.
There's Ron Lim, 92. Look at that.
I love that's my first. That was my first.
We all have that character or several characters. Like Ghost Rider is another one of mine, and it's funny. I mean, obviously you're a big Surfer fan. So is my son. So is
really?
My son's Spidey's his first love, but the Surfer's right there, and that's one of those interesting stories. So I'm all into the horror stuff, right? So I'm reading Ghost Rider, and I'm telling him about Mephisto, and I'm telling him about how all these demons are and everything. And so he starts kind of looking through some of my Marvel universes when he was small. I mean, they grew up, both of my children. My daughter's a professional wrestler. So they grew up with my loves of things. Like my son draws. He doesn't feel like he's as good, but he's awesome. They both kind of like, oh, okay, dad listens to that kind of music. So she'll go off and like this kind and he'll like this kind. And I'm a pretty eclectic guy. Like I like all kinds of different music. Movies, she'll kind of like this, he'll kind of like that. TV shows, that kind of thing. Same thing with comics. They would branch off into their own characters based on, oh, he kind of like that. So I'm sitting there telling him about, Ghost Rider crossed over, and then there's these demons and they're going on with this. And he's like, Mephisto looks really cool. Who's that silver guy? And it just, and then he was small. Pretty soon it started being, hey, if you're, I'm buying stuff, can I get that Silver Surfer? Yeah, man. Yeah, totally.
Yes.
So I mean, he was always into Silver Surfer. Spider-Man was his main thing and still is, but Silver Surfer, that's like right there for him. So I think that's funny because I mean, and it branched off of me talking about Doctor Strange and Ghost Rider and Mephisto and the Darkhold and all this stuff, and he just kind of went this way with it. And I was like, that's really cool, man. I'm glad you found the Surfer. And then I brought him back into Fantastic Four stuff because I loved all the old Lee and Kirby. Like I read reprints, and I was like, look at all this universe building that they were doing. I mean, that starts it. If Martin Goodman and Stan Lee hadn't been talking about, hey, we need a Justice League, and Kirby hadn't left DC and was like, hey, I have some ideas, who knows what we would be talking about, So if you look at the genesis of it, and it's just amazing. It's just like they had the forethought to interact it and build it from the ground up that way. Yeah. And then it just branches. And then you meet people and they're like, okay, I'm really into X-Men. I like this character. Oh, I remember. And it goes into your own fandom of whatever your realm of the Marvel universe is, so to speak.
It is. And like you said, it really is this kind of special thing where because all those issues of team up, because of all those things where Marvel characters were talking to other Marvel characters in other universes, that kind of mirrors what the fandom can do, right? It mirrors how we all talk to each other and how we remember things because it is so interconnected. Yeah, and Kirby's stuff. I mean, my favorite, one of my favorite MCU movies is probably Thor Ragnarok, simply for the fact, not only because it's a good script, but also because the scenes right in Ragnarok is all created from Kirby art. Like that's why you have those colors. Okay. They purposely looked at Kirby work. Like I think they mentioned the behind the scenes stuff. It's not an astute observation that I made out of my own wisdom. It was something they mentioned. I'm giving you that one. But they mentioned that they took the Kirby art and they were like, DC's very dark. Right, has this kind of dark tones and this beautiful, like the newest Batman movie was killer, beautifully done, lit perfectly, noir, very clean, and very Seven. And the Marvel kind of pulled Jack Kirby kind of colors and shapes, and I mean that style. I mean when he made Surfer and made a lot of characters, they were just like Surfer was just supposed to be a cosmic entity. Like he wasn't even supposed to really be deep. That was all Stan Lee who kind of worked that in there, which is crazy. But Kirby was just, Galactus, the Eternals. You know what I mean? There's just this kind of stuff that was done that was so brilliantly, maneuvered into Marvel Comics that really defined their aesthetic. It's pretty cool to see. It's pretty cool to see how all this kind of comes full circle.
Yeah, it just all ties into each other. And he was studying theology basically through his entire career. Jack Kirby was like, this really interests you, a new pantheon of this or that, depending on what company he was at. Well, I'm going to go in opposite direction this way or that way. And it's still being felt to this day. I don't know. It's something to study on it. I noticed a lot of those panels too, because there's a lot of I think it's like Kirby is King. It's this huge tabletop edition book.
Yes.
I saw some of the as they were showing it. I was like, wow, okay. And I liked a lot of the Thor stuff when I was a kid because I always liked mythology. So my character in particular is a horror character, but he's basically the Frankenstein monster, but his body is a teenage titan, like a teen titan. But cool. He's basically a titan from Greek myth that body's been resurrected and he's fighting Zeus. So it flips the whole like narrative to where Zeus is trying to control people and make them think everyone has to be beautiful, everyone has to be rich, everyone has to be all the things they show us in images on advertisements. And the reality is we're all different and unique, and we should all be accepted. And this character's a horror host. That's kind of how he hides. But now that thing's been done. Everybody's doing a horror host. So I'm downplaying that slightly. But I mean, he battles these monsters and like griffins and cyclops, and I mean, because I was just like, man, that's really cool. And Kirby would do that. He'd be like, okay, on Thor, I'm going to tackle all these different pantheons. They hadn't really done Norse mythology. So him and Stan are talking about it, and he starts going that way. And he goes over to DC, and he's doing, like, well, the gods are dead, so I'm going to do the new gods. So he comes up with Darkseid and Genesis and all. And it was just him exploring all these different mythologies and theology. And then George Lucas sees it and goes, Darkseid, that's a great, Darth Vader. And he's exploring theology with Star Wars, and you're like, wow, that's really cool. Just because it's, we all, like I said, it's a modern mythology. We all have love for these characters, and we're like, man, it would be great to be that character, or I would aspire to, or I relate to. And that's what gets us reading the comics and saying, man, I really like that particular yarn that was spun, so to speak, to use old vernacular.
I love it. Well, speaking about horror too, and I know we're probably gonna. I don't want to go off on a tangent too much.
Carry on tangenting. This is what it's all about.
Creepy and eerie, man. Those are so good. So good. No one, I remember I found out about it late in life, unfortunately, because I'm a huge horror buff too. Huge horror buff. And I got into it late, but that work in itself, man, especially talking about horror or talking about these characters and talking about like Tales from the Crypt and yeah, baby.
So this is my character, Baron von Saturday. This is a 3D model of him that I want to build like one of those Aurora model kits, like those old Universal Monster Aurora model kits of him. Like it's got like some gears on the bottom, like he's in Dr. Frankenstein's lab and the whole 9 yards. But yeah, I want to make like glow in the dark. Like I'm all about that. My wife will laugh. She's like, oh, they said glow in the dark. He's going to want 2 of those. It glows in the dark.
Everything glows in the dark for me. That's all. Same here. I'm all about that. If it has that green tinge on it, I'm like, I'll take it. I want it today. I'm all about it.
Ian's face is priceless.
Oh my God, dude. I am like a major glow in the dark, crazy fanatic. Like I love. Yeah. Okay, whatever, dude. I'm a 90s kid. You can go screw yourself.
No. I'm just wondering how deep that particular rabbit hole goes. Glow in the dark. Ghost Rider Series 2, the glow in the dark set.
That's actually really amazing.
Wonderful. Pop quiz. Which Marvel set did scratch and sniff cards?
Oh, isn't that the Punisher? The gunpowder?
That's it. Well done.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Well done.
I forgot all about that. Nice. See?
Yeah, I don't own any of them. But they are.
What year was that?
90. I want to say 91.
I think
I was gonna guess 92. Yeah, there you go. 91.
91. It has to be early 90s.
It was definitely everything was early 90s.
It was one of the last comic images.
Early 90s.
Even was it a hologram cover that would glowed in the dark and smelled? Like, yeah, they were trying everything. Stick it if it goes sticks to the wall. Try it. Readership is off, or they bought all those variant covers, and we're gonna try and gouge it. So.
I gotta get all the Silver Surfer hologram covers from the 90s, the 75th and the 100th. There's so many good. The Prisms. Silver Surfer had the Prism set. That's right. Well, I was just looking. What is it? A buddy of mine, 9.9 newsstand on Instagram.
Oh, we could get him on.
He's nice. You'd like him. He's a comic book guy like all of us. And really knows the depth. He was crazy. So it was funny. I was talking to him late Tuesday night. Whatever. I don't even know how I'm doing that because it's like at 11 o'clock for me, and I'm an old man already for some reason. But he showed this crazy card from DC, and it just looked like a piece of plastic. I have it here, so I have to show you guys. It looks like a piece of plastic, but there's a hologram on it. Barely visible from the early 90s type of thing. You can't even see this hologram. You have to be like just in the right angle. You have to basically be Indiana Jones in a cave waiting for the sun with the staff waiting there to get it just right so you could see the image. But I just love how inventive all that stuff was, because with sports cards, they had really amazing production on sports cards. EX Century, the PMGs, all this other great stuff too that they did that we see a lot in retro. But for comic cards, they were just trying so many cool things. I felt like, you know what I mean? I'd love to see that kind of come back, because we see it here and there. And we get holograms and stuff like that. But I want to see some weird, you know what I mean? Weird stuff to see it come back and be inventive again in that way. Because that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun back in the day. I'll find you that Superman card.
Yeah, it's you think about all the things that have been. The most obvious one, gimmick. I guess it's not a gimmick, a set design choice. And the most obvious one stems back from 77 Star Wars. That's the puzzle card. When backs make up a picture. And in fact, Topps did it on the Star Trek motion picture set as well. The backs of them would make up the movie posters.
That's funny.
And things like that.
They even go further back, the 66, because I've been getting a hold of some of the 66 Batman cards from Topps. Those do it too on the back.
Conan did it. There were a Comic Images. A lot of Comic Images sets did it too. It's crazy.
Wow.
Crazy in those puzzles. Well, what's funny? They tried to do the Kree skull. Remember that set, Ian? The Marvel one?
Skull. Yeah.
I think everything in that set makes up a comic book on the back.
Yeah. Well, the 1996 Wolverine Fleer Ultra X-Men Wolverine set also makes up I believe it makes up a comic on the back of the panels. There was a story. I think it's that set. And it's a stunning set. It's, to me, it's a really underrated set. And I'm not saying this because I'm about to sell the half of the set that I've got, because I am. But Zenmu, there he is.
There's your guy, Jason.
Very, very cool.
I'm gonna send you one of these, and I want to send your son some surfers. So let me put some stuff together. But
nice,
very cool.
But the that Wolverine set that I'm referring to, the 96 Fleer Ultra X-Men Wolverine one, is like the X-Men version of Marvel Masterpieces from my point of view, because it's all original art and it's top end. It's really underrated and overlooked, and it's not on anyone's radar. But if anyone wants to get Marvel, Boris and Julia on it. It's lots of artists, but it's got the most incredible rendition of Psylocke in that set, and a number of other cool things. And then on the back, it kind of tells this story. So it's really at odds with the kind of highly stylized front. But such is life in the 90s. Jason, is there a Marvel property from back in the day that is sorely overlooked? And this is a leading question because I know what my answer will be. Well, I'll tell you what mine is. Mine is New Universe.
Okay.
I want more New Universe. Now, I'm probably the only person saying that right now who's collecting Marvel cards. But I'm not talking about the rubbish version of Star Brand they've got going around these days. I'm talking about the original Ken Connell, John Byrne. Because John Byrne, who's talking about influences, John Byrne, the number of people I know who are seriously influenced by John Byrne that we've spoken to, he can throw a rock. Hit someone who came up
ridiculous
on his line work. But yeah, New Universe. I've just got a real soft spot for it.
What year was that?
97 through. I think they kept it going for about 3 or 4 years till it finally petered out, and then the next bandwagon I jumped on was Midnight Suns and Generation X. Which were the things that I got into around that period.
Those are awesome.
We're going to get more Midnight Sun stuff just because they're laying the groundwork character-wise.
Yeah.
So I could see that coming. Old Marvel property. Because they touched on a lot of them. Because when I was a kid, too, Power Man and Iron Fist was something I was into. Just because I always liked exploitation films.
Yeah,
70s are a huge influence. I love them. Old funk music, that kind of thing. Kung fu movies. That I loved all of that. So that was something I was big into. But that's already kind of been brought back to focus.
Or Defenders.
And then and the Defenders was always a great book because it was a team that wasn't a team. Like you had Submariner, you had the Surfer, you had Doctor Strange, you had Hulk, but then it turned into this rotating cast of characters. Oh, we don't have nothing for Angel to do. He's not in X-Men, X Factor's not a thing yet. Boom, he was in
Defenders.
Yeah, for a couple of issues, and then he goes away. So that would be a cool thing to bring back. Tomb of Dracula.
Oh yes.
That's where I would.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
That's a guilty pleasure. I mean, not a guilty pleasure because I'm not guilty about any of it. I love it, but that's where I would go. I mean, that run. I mean, there's only been a couple of times that a supervillain's had his own book, and that was the one that lasted the longest. I think the Joker had a title for 14 issues way back in the day, and then you had Dracula for 75 issues.
Yeah.
Most of any villain, I think he's overdue. Well, and I mean the real good version, the one that looks like Jack Palance, not all these other.
Yeah.
Well, there was a supervillain team up for a little time in the 70s.
Yeah,
it was kind of the antithesis to the Marvel team up things that was going on.
Submariner and Doctor Doom.
Yeah, and then I'm just trying to think. Of course, you had that. It wasn't really a supervillain having his own book, but it kind of was. You had that brief period where Dr. Octopus was Spider-Man, Superior Spider-Man, which ran for about 30 issues. In fact, they carried that on for a lot longer than I thought they would.
Yeah, me too.
But it was really well. It was really well done. Hats off to Dan Slott for pulling that off. I know a lot of people throw rocks at Dan Slott for his run, but I think he did some of the most iconic stuff that's still having shockwaves.
Doc Ock is my favorite spider villain. So we've talked about that in posts on Instagram because a lot of people. I draw a lot of Venom because a lot of people want Venom. I'm a huge Venom guy. I love Venom, but as a kid, Doc Ock was my go-to. A lot of people like Goblin, but I was always a Doc Ock guy.
Hobgoblin's my thing.
That would be my next tier down. Hobgoblin.
Hobgoblin. That whole era of Amazing Spider-Man, kind of from about 238 was it, with the tattoos, where Hobgoblin's on the cover, through to about 290, where you had Hobgoblin, you had the Rose, you had that gang war storyline.
Rose.
If you ever look, I sneak Hobgoblin into almost every set on purpose. I've snuck the Rose in a couple of times. I've had people ask me, when are you doing the Rose again? One of the Roses that I did, because I've done him a couple times, is he's got the rain falling on him. Because I always remember like Ron Friend's artwork, and it would just be like the rain, and he's got the crushed rose in his hand. And I'm right there with you. This is a great comic. Steal it with Hobgoblin on the front.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's that whole period of Amazing Spider-Man for me is my golden era, just before McFarlane came in.
The black suit. I don't know if you guys can see this, but my wedding ring is the black Spider-Man.
Oh wow!
Costume.
That's cool.
Because when I was a kid, Secret Wars, I've got. He's hanging out next to me on the desk. The black Secret Wars Spider-Man. That was always my jam, because I'm that guy that I was kind of like. Everybody was like, "Oh, Mary Jane, Gwen." I was like, Black Cat. Why isn't he just marry Black Cat? Like, that's the perfect person for him to be with. Oh, he's got the black suit. He's not gonna get picked on anymore. Awesome. Now I'm invested. Like, beat him up. Beat all these guys up that picked on you. You know, whatever. So I guess I kind of had the anti-hero idea of it when I was a kid. Yeah. But that was my era. I was like, man, I really like this new attitude he's got. Then they kind of, we can't go that route. And nobody likes the black suit. Bring back the red and blue, whatever. And every time, they're putting out a black suit Spidey. I need that.
Yeah.
It's been a thing, and everybody that knows me kind of knows, like, that's more his preference. Brown suit Wolverine.
Bro.
Right next to him right here.
Right?
Brown suit Wolverine. Right? Bobblehead sitting right here.
I'm saying black suit Spider-Man, brown suit Wolverine.
If you look for a pattern in any of my card sets, Hobgoblin, Doc Ock, usually sneak them in. Black Spider-Man, brown suit Wolverine. Just saying. Those are things that are always in there. I usually try and sneak a gray Hulk in there, too. I love Green Hulk, but I usually sneak a Mr. Fix-It in there, too.
Great. Yeah, great.
I have to have him in there.
That's fun. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. Micronauts. No one gives Micronauts any love, as far as I'm concerned.
You brought up Micronauts.
There's probably a reason for that, but I don't know. I have fond memories.
was a good run there. A lot of good artwork, a lot of good story came out of Micronauts.
It was inventive, you can't knock it. Can't knock them for trying. And
they
the other
took
one,
toy lines and made them great. I mean,
well, that's
Marvel
the other one.
known
That's
for
the one
that.
I was about to mention. The other one that no one mentions. I don't know if it came out as a Marvel comic in the US, but it was in Marvel UK along with Spider-Man. Is Zoids, which was a Japanese toy line of giant robots.
I had a request to draw some Zoids not too long ago. I haven't taken them up on yet, but yeah, Zoids was mildly popular here. I mean, it was kind of towards the tail end of things in terms of it, but it's like Death's Head. I mean, it's one of those things where you're aware of it. You're aware of it here. Like, we don't have it. He's not as prominent, but we know who he is, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Or like Action Man versus G.I. Joe. Like how you said G.I. Joe's not quite as big a thing.
Oh, Action Man was the thing over here.
Yeah. And they kind of, they're bridged together.
Yeah. And
being somebody who's friends with a lot of toy collectors too, that's the comics they focus on. So they can tell you, this was the first appearance of, I don't know, what a G.I. Joe character. Like, there's the silent issue that Larry Hama wrote, and I got to meet him at a G.I. Joe convention.
Wow.
That was a huge honor. But yeah, just like Simon Furman, like I know some people, they can quote Bible and verse of his Transformers run, and then they got the UK stuff. There's a lot of reprints, so they've read more of what he's done. Yeah. So sometimes those things cross over, but they were the idea. Like, I mean, they're the house of ideas, right? But they were the people you went to. I've got a toy line. I need to make it popular. Oh, we'll do a comic. They fleshed out the entire Transformers universe. I mean, we wouldn't have that if Bob Budiansky didn't do that.
Yeah, Bob
Larry Hama with Joe's, same thing. He wrote all the file cards. He came up with all the characters and where they came from. So those are all good ones. They did Thundercats. They eventually got He-Man. That started at DC. I'm trying to think. Cops was DC. Mask was DC.
Mask.
Centurions was DC. Crystar or Crystar, I guess it depends on how you say it. I just did him in one of the Back to Retro sets for Beyond Company.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he was definitely Marvel. Rom the Space Knight.
Yeah.
Roms.
There's a lot of them. There are a lot of those properties, and I loved a lot of that. So Shogun Warriors, Marvel. Shogun Warriors. Like I said, the giant Japanese robot thing. I mean, I love them. So that was a big one for me. That was a team-up book. I mean, all those characters exist in their own universes in Japan, and they brought them over here. Mattel's like, we got this idea for a toy line. Marvel's like, guess what? They're all best buddies. Yeah. Perfect. Works for me.
Yeah. Fine. Well, weirdest crossovers you've seen, right? Mine, I'm going to throw it out there. About 10 years ago now, maybe, I was in Forbidden Planet in London, and IDW had a Doctor Who Star Trek Next Generation crossover book out. And I was like, what am I seeing here? What am I seeing? I didn't understand it, and it felt somehow wrong to me. Aliens, Predator, I can cope with. Aliens, Terminator, Spawn, Batman, I can cope with those. But something about Doctor Who, Star Trek Next Generation just made my back open and shut, and I didn't look any further. But yeah, that was a weird one.
They did X-Men Star Trek Next Generation at one point.
Oh my goodness, I've forgotten about that. Yes.
That one, I think that one even tips the scale, because at least with the Doctor Who, you're like, yeah, that could probably see them interacting, but X-Men? It's like, okay, but aside from Patrick Stewart being a big player in both, what's the commonality there? Yeah. Let's see. Most of the time they'll cross over. There's some interesting ones that usually happen with Dark Horse or Image.
That's
where they would cross over with DC or Marvel. Because, I mean, you'd have your obvious ones, right, where they did, like, Batman, Spider-Man. But then they did Batman, Spawn. Yeah, that one makes sense.
Trying to think when that came out. That was like huge.
Superman Madman was a fun one that I remember reading. Hullabaloo, because I like
interesting.
All its pop art stuff is brilliant. So that was a fun one. I want to say they did a Hellboy crossover with somebody at one point.
Hellboy's crossover. Didn't Archie crossover with Friday the 13th or something crazy like that?
Yeah. Archie's crossover with everything. There's 66 Batman Archie. There's Friday the 13th Archie. There's Vampirella Archie going back to eerie and creepy. Love Vampirella.
Vampirella.
Yeah, there's some very fun. Archie is usually the one, I think, if we're talking, that does the funnest crossovers. Like sure, take a spin at it. And I loved all the old Red Circle stuff, like the Rich Buckler stuff. as a kid. That was like your third or fourth tier down. But again, back to those comics that had no covers. I'm like, well, who's the Web? Who's the Shield? Who are these MLJ guys? These guys are awesome. And then I started reading some of the Silver Age stuff, and it was like, man, this is corny. I love it. All the cornier, the better. Like, oh yeah,
yes.
Ting ting, the smile with the teeth, and like, I don't know. I geek on that stuff, and then of course, then I'm over here liking the anti-hero stuff. We're like, well, yeah, Spider-Man should beat him up, man. It's more fun.
Yeah. And then you're putting it on your next sets. That's the main thing. It's all. I guess it's all. Inspiration, isn't it? The fact that you've got such a rich well to draw from, which is probably why you're on so many sets. So what's next coming up in your I mean, obviously there's stuff you can't talk about, but what's next that you can talk about that either we haven't seen yet or you're excited for people to see that you've worked on?
There's more Marvel coming.
Ew.
More Star Wars coming. More indie sets coming. For sure. Love working on a lot of those because of the freedom of them. Love working on the big name stuff because I've always wanted to. I mean, that's all the stuff I've wanted to work on. Couple other projects, publisher wise. So let's see, Upper Deck Pops, Dynamite.
Okay.
Fivefinity. More with Tom Breyer. More with Bianca. Obviously, those are fun sets to be on. I'll put it to you this way. I sent a set back yesterday. In these 2 months, May and June, I'm on 9 different deadlines right now.
Oh, my goodness me. Right. Okay.
So, yeah, there's a lot coming. Can't really say what they are, but yeah, some interesting properties, let's put it that way, that
You're
are...
a busy fella.
Yeah, they're not out of my wheelhouse, but I have not worked on some of them yet, and I've always wanted to, so I'm pretty stoked about them. Can't wait to share them, but that whole don't tell.
Yeah.
Smart.
Loose lips sink ships, or whatever it is. I can't even speak. Because I quite like the fact that not a lot of people have, the Marvel Allure stuff. There's. I mean, you're putting that out there loads. It's great. Because that
I did a lot of cards for that set. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that sketch stock is really growing on me. It's like
it's really cool.
Yeah, some of the borders on them aren't maybe as conducive to kind of creativity, shall we say, for some people.
Yeah, it varies. The paper quality definitely varies, and then with your work too, it'll show differently because I add highlights on at the end a lot of the time. Like I'll build them in as I'm designing, like, okay, this is where the light source is. I'm going to go ahead and hit the colors this way and leave a little bit there, but I'll go back over it with with a pilot or something to put more white on there. And some of the cardstock just does not take it. So it'll look extra smeary. And I'm like, oh man, really? That ended up looking like that. And some of it just absorbs it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, you've got a She-Hulk here from Allure that you shared a few weeks back, and I look at it and it immediately reminds me of Al Milgram's work. It's just got that kind of vibe about it. I
appreciate that. Yeah, I try to take different stabs at different styles of the characters too. Like, this was this era. This is a 70s era. This is an 80s era. This is, just to, because I've absorbed all of it and I've had love for all of it.
Oh my goodness me. I've just seen something on your Instagram feed. I can't believe I didn't see this before. Talk to me about this card that I'm seeing on my screen right now. What set is this?
So that is a Kara Nicole card. That is from a set that Bianca's putting out called Cosplay Craze.
Okay.
Just had the Kickstarter this last month.
Oh, wow.
So that's her. Obviously, is Black Cat. No copyright intended there.
Oh, so Kara Nicole is a cosplayer? Because I know nothing about this world.
Yeah, she is a cosplayer. Okay. She is from Colorado, I believe, and she lives in Arizona where Bianca lives. So it's kind of a bridge between our two states. But yeah, there is a set that is coming out that I did cards for. I put a couple out, and that's one of the ones I put out. And obviously, she cosplays as Black Cat. You and I are, I know you're a big Black Cat fan, as am I. So that was one I had to get in there. I was like, okay, I got to do at least one of the Black Cat iterations. But she's known as Arizona Power Girl, so she does Power Girl was her primary, where she started doing DC cosplay, and branched off into other characters. I know a lot of cosplayers because I had done the Superman celebration like way back. Oh man, we're talking almost 20 years ago already. But I met George Perez before then, and I had met him. Speaking of people that you meet, and you're just like, wow. Yeah. I looked up to this guy for a reason. Super amazing human being. He would go bowling with folks in the little town. I mean, that is a tiny town, Metropolis, Illinois. But a lot of the DC cosplayers would meet up at like Dragon Con and things like that. And I had met her here in Colorado Springs, where I live. She's, I believe, from Denver, and her husband got married here at one of the cons I was at. So I've known them for years. He does a lot of self-publishing. They have comics that they're doing. And then Bianca was like, hey, would you like to be on this set? And I was like, hey, that's something different. I haven't really done cosplayers. I'm doing a lot of like pinup style stuff now too, which I hadn't really done a lot of those, because like with Marvel and DC characters now, they'll have female characters that were since, I don't know, 60s, some of them since the late 30s, early 40s, where the costume is what it is. And we can't draw them, or they don't want to publicize it, or want to, generalize, or to, they don't want to portray that any longer. Yeah. And I can totally respect that. And I'm like, okay, I get that. So I'll do more headshots and that type of thing. So some of the female characters you don't get to do as dynamic of poses, whereas some of the male characters, because they're superheroes, you can draw them a little bit more dynamic poses. So it gives me a chance to draw more different figures than just, your typical guy in a suit. It gets kind of vanilla, where I think like when they've been putting out some of these figures, you had your superpowers figures in the 80s, right? Those were all each off of Garcia Lopez artwork, and they were specific to a character. So it's like, I can't take the Superman buck and go and turn around and make a different character out of it. But when Secret Wars came out, I don't know if you guys have seen these, but they have they were doing like the Golden Age characters. They've done Madman. I think they've done the Spirit on a Secret Wars buck. Like, it's very similar to it. Right. And they put those out, and that's what it kind of feels like with some of the superheroes. And you're like, they're all the same guy. It was like the Migos when I was a kid. I could put these doll clothes on this same body, and it's a different character. Boom, now it's Mr. Fantastic. It was just Captain America, that kind of a thing. So you kind of get there. So that's been fun working on a set like that, just because it's different. It's different. Some of the other back to retro ones that she's done too, because then I can do cartoon characters, or I've drawn musicians. Getting to do different portraiture than others, because Star Wars, they want tight portraiture, and getting to draw actual I'm going to draw Madonna on this set, just to take stabs at different things.
The cosplay set kind of feels quite meta in a way, because it's people who dress up as pop culture characters, and it's a card set about those people. I just find it fascinating that's a thing. Yeah. It's like, of course it's a thing, and it's brilliant. But
card sets about everything anymore, and I love it. Every time someone approaches me, I have this idea. I hadn't thought of that. That's a great idea. Let's do it. And I'll try and get involved. Sometimes I over-promise and under-deliver on that, because like I said, like right now I've got 9 deadlines. There's a couple of sets I would love to have done that were indies. You can't do everything. It's like the time is just not there.
So many hours in the day.
Yeah, and you have the bigger companies you've been working for. You don't want to disappoint them, and sometimes those deadlines come hard and quick. Yeah. And they're like, I need this set, and this set. Are you in? Yeah, send them to me. And that's going to take precedence,
Good. Norrin,
don't forget to tell me. Oh. Don't forget to tell me your address, Jason. Okay, I put stuff together for your surfer.
I appreciate it for sure.
Okay. And I gave you one of these things, so you have it just for your
super cool. I like that. Very much appreciated.
What were you saying?
Obscure property and/or character set that you would like to see on sketch cards and/or cards in general you haven't seen.
God, dude, to mention ones that haven't been mentioned already is pretty tough.
I was going to say, well, you'll mention them, and Jason will be like, "No, that's been done. Yeah, it's been done."
Because I've been like nodding my head along, like yes, because I didn't want the from looking at cards to distract. Oh man, gosh, dude, properties that have yet to be done on cards.
Well, shall I give you mine? Because this might have been done. Oh, creepy, yes, of course.
creepy or eerie. Like, you know what I mean? I'm sure there's a Tales from the Crypt. I know there's a Twilight Zone. I know there's a few other, creepy kind of IPs out there. Silent Hill would be sick to see that. Would be cool. I know they did promo cards. So I know the cards, is a set of cards that exist. I was going to pick up, but it was too expensive. Old school properties. Gosh, man. An Inspector Gadget set would be cool. I don't know.
That'd be cool.
See prop relics. I can see some mechanic cards in there.
You're talking about the movie.
No, not the movie. No. I was just joking about like cartoon stuff. I'm
thinking.
I love Matthew Broderick. I have mad love for him, and I don't think that movie's bad at all. But no, I think that's the best thing about cards, in my opinion, is that when you take an IP and make it into cards, like Rittenhouse is really good about this, and so are other card companies too. But you just get to have all this fun where you just get to picture what it's like to have a memorabilia card or a collectible card or a scene from a movie on a card. I don't know. I just love the whole aspect of being able to distill an IP in a card set, right? It's just fun. And I love what you guys are doing with the 90s retro and all the other card sets that are happening now that are emerging, because there are a lot of restrictions on sketch card artists, and the pay is horrible. And I think you are all doing such a brilliant job of trying to have that library of having to get all these different characters onto sketch cards, because there are so many sketch card collectors out there. I don't think people realize how much it really is important to people's binders and people's collections, where they're like, oh, I want to, archive this whole set here, and I want to get this, and it's not about the pack pull nature of it. It's about having a communication with someone. I mean, like yourself, Jason, who's, I got to be honest, man, like this is like Grant level kind of wisdom of comic books and characters and stuff like that. I mean, it's just so impressive, my friend, and I love how deep you are into this, and how awesome you are being at like just putting your art into all these different IPs and kind of giving life to all these characters in your own way. It's a phenomenal thing, man. It's really cool.
I appreciate that. I really do. I mean, that's what I tell my wife and my kids. I'm like, there's time that I'll never get back, but when you're gone, your cards are still here.
Yeah.
I've had people pull cards from all over the world, and they'll reach out to me, and I'm like, wow. I'm about dead center of the U.S. Colorado Springs, where I live, is like basically dead center. Like, how many places do I not get to visit in life? How many cultures do I not get to experience? How many different types of food or music? But if a piece of my artwork can get there, how cool is that? Somebody in that culture sees that and goes, wow, I really like this because of a character that they have an emotional attachment to. That's a huge honor to be a part of that. And the gravity of it is not lost on me. Believe me. That's why, just in us talking about these different properties, I'm like, man, there's somebody out there right now that just heard Inspector Gadget and was like, oh, and they want that. And I'm like, oh, okay, on one of these sets, maybe I sneak an Inspector Gadget in there or something like that. So, I mean, it's really cool. Or somebody right now is like, that Doctor Who and Star Trek The Next Generation was my favorite thing. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. We cross over.
I didn't read it, so I can't judge.
No, that's what I'm saying. And to me, I thought that was kind of an odd choice too. Think about all these different possibilities that we've never even thought of. And that's the cool thing with card sets. And that's back to what I was talking about. I wanted to do the big comics, but you're working 11 by 17. And you're like, okay, this character looks this way. You're reading the author's words, and it's like, okay, he looks this way. So I've got to get the reader to look that way, and then go into the next panel. There's an entire layout that goes into making a comic.
Visual storytelling, yeah.
I can grab a card, and I can say, okay, this is a moment in time. In my brain, I'm seeing Hulk do this one thing this one time. I draw it, and I move on to the next one. And I can, for my neural synapses, the way they with all the pop culture, I can do that. I can say, oh, you know what? Today I feel like drawing Matt Tracker from Mask, and then I'm going to move on to the next thing. And I can do that. And it's fun. Or somebody says, hey, have you ever drawn a Care Bear? Yeah, now I have. I hadn't before. But now My Little Pony, something like that. Yeah, and I've done it now.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, I think that's the way to do it, man. I mean, And similar it is for you as an artist, you know, being the supplier of this work. It's the same for collectors in a strange way for most of our listeners. You know, I mean, I think a lot of people, gosh, between Ian and I mean, like, it's been insane how many people like you, Jason, like, to get a card all the way from Australia, New Zealand, or, you know, India, Egypt, you know, even Hong Kong. Like, it's just insane how global so much of this stuff is, and it really does kind of surpass language and culture, right? It is this,
and it's growing as well.
It's growing as well. It's just this really special thing that we all share. It's interesting. I don't know. You know, it's funny. I was just talking to my wife about this actually, and it was a good conversation because there's so many Marvel movies now and so many superhero topics and all this other stuff that comes out, and the nostalgia wave, and, you know, all this stuff we're all dealing with, you know, being, you know, 30s, 40s, you know, male, female, whatever. A lot of people remembering back and looking at this stuff, and people talking about when it ends and when people are going to move on to the next thing or whatever. I see in all of this something that's very universal, very common. You know what I mean? I don't understand. You know, I see a lot of people being able to share experiences by having no experiences with each other. You know what I mean? I was writing something recently, and I was just like, it's crazy when you meet a fan of something you like, because it doesn't matter where you grew up. Doesn't matter. None of the details matter. It's almost like you were always those neighborhood kids, you know, trading and reading comic books in that treehouse. You know what I mean? It's almost instant. I forgot where I was writing that, but there is this bond that's immediately created, and I think you're doing that with your art. And I really appreciate you coming on and, you know, talking to us about this, and, you know, having this kind of really just amazing conversation about the power of of memory and power of these things that we've all connected to on an emotional level.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a huge honor. Like I said, I've always, you know, since Get, you guys have been very supportive of me, and I've tried to be as equally supportive. It's always been something I've wanted to do, was to be on the podcast. So it's a huge honor, and I definitely appreciate it.
I'm sorry it took this long to sort out. Actually, we've been trying to get it on the cards for a while, but
sorry, I was sick the last couple of weeks ago. Sorry about that, brother.
Oh no, yeah, hey, those things happen. I'm glad you're feeling better. Back to Ian's question. 60s Hanna-Barbera.
Oh,
yes.
That would be a fun card set to work on. Mighty Mightor, Herculoid, Space Ghost, Birdman. I would have a blast. All that Alex Toth, oh man, I love all that stuff. Just the designs he did on that pre-Super Friends, and then he went into doing the Super Friends stuff. Some of the obscure Ruby Spears cartoons would be cool to work on some of that. Because those were all those Gold Key and Whitman comics, right? So you had just a wealth of stuff. I'd like to do like Green Hornet would be cool. I know Dynamite I think has that now, but Green Hornet would be cool.
Saw that. I saw something like Green Hornet around.
I'd like to be on that set. I think they did Lone Ranger. I would have liked to have been on that. I'm a huge Phantom guy. Like, I love the Phantom and how far he reaches. He's so many different colors and so many different things to so many different cultures all over the world. And I've made a lot of friends just
sick
being a Phantom fan. PHAN, by the way.
Phantom. Wow. Yes.
You know, the Shadow, a lot of that old stuff. I've met a lot of people that are into noir and into
Shadow, that
type of thing. So I'd love to do all of the above.
Okay. Hold up. Shadow. That is okay. All right. I'm just going to say this. When I was a kid, I saw Phantom, Billy Zane. Don't judge. Billy Zane.
No, I love it.
Shadow, Alec Baldwin. And he's been hilarious. My Nicholas is my dog has been like looking at me like, when is my mother gonna get here? Why am I hanging out with you all day? But those movies, man, I really liked them. I thought they were fun. I liked them back in the, and then when I got into the comic books, that is just next level goodness, man. Shadow and Phantom are just such good pieces. Like, I go on comicartfans.com quite a bit, which is just an amazing website. And looking at all the originals of the Phantom, the Shadow, it's just such great artwork, such good like inking, just good everything. Honestly, it's so impressive, those series. I love those pieces.
See, I think mine's probably been done, but I just haven't witnessed it. But it's cards based on not on the comic book, which is going to be sacrilege for a lot of people, but on the movie and the subsequent TV series of Watchmen.
Watchmen.
That would be cool.
Because what I love about the Watchmen movie and the TV series actually is how they have the different styles of the characters that were the Minutemen, which were obviously much earlier, and then you had the more modern characters, and then I don't know if either of you have seen the Watchmen TV series that came out a couple of years ago. Did you watch it in the end? Because I know I was recommending
so good.
Yeah, there were the fantastic podcasts that accompanied it that HBO did that had Damon Lindelof talking about and the creative team talking about how they made certain choices, and it's just phenomenal. Just the did the world need this Watchmen series? No, but will they do it again? Probably not. But the whole and all the in between as to how they came to the decisions they made in it, I just think it was superb.
They were good decisions, man.
Yeah,
the Telsa, the crossover,
loved it.
There was really smart moves all the way around. What they did with Manhattan, I was really impressed. I still couldn't believe it when I saw it. I was just like, man, they just did such a great job. The only problem I ever had with the movie was that sex scene. Like, I don't know why they did that.
Oh, is
like,
that the one in the flying out?
In the flying out.
Yeah.
Like him and it's in the book, but like it's just, tonally it just shifted. It was such a weird moment to have in that script. But, Rorschach not being able to not, comply and what that meant, like that moment there, that actor sold that moment.
I mean, it's astonishing. It's
astonishing. It's just such a good piece.
Zack Snyder and what he did with that movie.
It's beautiful.
I love it.
And it was before a lot of things that people were doing. Dick Tracy.
Yes. Dick Tracy is huge.
Dick Tracy.
Just post the set of the villains. Every time I do them, everybody buys Dick Tracy and leaves the villains. It's like Ninja Turtles. You do all four, and then somebody goes, "Oh, I just like Michelangelo, or I just like Raphael," and then you're left with the other ones that have a matching background or something, and I have to redraw the whole set. But branching off of the Watchmen idea, I mean, those are all old Charlton comics. So Blue Beetle, Captain Atom, like it would be cool to go and do those, like as Charlton, like branded as such. In fact, I tried to do. They used to have. What was it called? I'm trying to think of it, but they had a book how we were talking about introducing them on the team up books. Like, here's a new character, I was going to do that with my indie company. I just haven't had time to do it, where we would introduce new characters, and it was going to be called Themis Shockwave in kind of a tribute to the old Charlton. Would do that. They'd be like, oh, in this issue, the Question, and then there's Captain Atom, or there's Blue Beetle, and they would just kind of sneak them in. And I wanted to do something like that, but you got a card set? I'll do it. And then I get lost.
I get lost. Well, it's always in that melting pot. It's always in there. Before we wrap up, I was just wanted to touch on.
Sure.
You are one of the hardest working artists, and there's a lot of them that do this really well on social media, and how you do that. And then we've touched on it with the Webhead Wednesday and Mutant Monday and Ian Thursday and all these other things that we touched on earlier on. It will be a thing. Ian Thursday will be a thing.
I was gonna say that's a thing. Paul, Dre, if you guys are listening, Ian Thursday.
Yeah. Well, Dre, I've already been on at least one trading card. No, at least two trading cards I'm aware of, and so is Norrin. There's Dre did me as MODOK.
Oh, that's
last year.
Okay.
I think it was last year or the year before. He sent me a little sketch of me as MODOK, and I'm like, what the is this? But it's brilliant. I love it. I look terrifying and disgusting in equal measure. So you put a lot of work into it. So that in itself can be a job in itself, promoting yourself in that way. But you seem to find it, well, it appears effortless, the way you do it and the way you go about it. Just tell us quickly how you kind of got to your point as to where you are with that, and what made you decide to keep that going so well.
It was hard at first. I mean, just putting your artwork out there is hard because you never know who's going to like it. Art is such a subjective thing. You're thinking that's the best card you ever done. Somebody else is like, that's hot garbage. I can't believe that was even in an official set. Or even before that, when I was just doing cards just to kind of get my name out there because I wanted to do the cards. It wasn't even about necessarily using it as a resume. But I mean, that's ended up what ended up happening ultimately was that they saw my work. And I was one of the ones that I was lucky and grateful that I was contacted to do the work. Like they were like, hey, we really like what you're doing. We'd like to offer you a set. And I'm looking at my wife like, oh, please let it be Spider-Man. If it's a Marvel set, please let it be Spider-Man. I get the email. And I'm like, oh, it's Spider-Man. All right, cartwheels. But in terms of making so awesome. Yeah, you don't ever want to see me doing a cartwheel. It would be MODOK hideous.
I'd pay for it.
But in terms of like
Kickstarter,
trying to get yourself out there on social media is hard. And like I said, you have people that are loyalists, like they're loyalists to a style or they're loyalists to a brand or they're loyalists to other artists or whatever it is. And trying not to offend anybody or trying to get your place at the table is hard at first. When I was trying to get into the indie comics publishing scene and trying to get in certain artist scenes, or even when I was trying to do like fine art, everybody kind of thinks you're coming for their spot. And with card artists, it's not like that. Like everybody's very welcoming and like, hey, how's it going? And yeah, we'll all be on that together. I'll tag you in it. We're all on this set and that kind of a thing. So that has definitely made it easier, but I've tried to make it kind of a routine. So like I wake up, I go, okay, I need to do my post. I'm going to bed. I need to do a post. Instagram's algorithm has played havoc with that. I mean, they've gone nuts with that. Twitter too. Sometimes it's like that got how many likes? And then there are other times like, man, I'm really proud of this card. Oh man, nobody even saw it. Okay. But I've worked it into being part of the job, if that makes sense. Like I'll lay out a set as I'm working on it. I say, okay, these are the characters I'm going to try and sneak in there. This is what I want to do. Or I'll do mini sets like with the Star Wars stuff to try and keep it interesting. I'll say, okay, I'm doing these 5 types of troopers and I'm going to do them, in the set, within the parameters. You get that, and that's thinking ahead. Like, okay, when it's Webhead Wednesday, I'm going to do obscure Spidey villains for 3 or 4 posts. As a tribute to those obscure, or for the people like we were talking about, that's a Kangaroo fan. Maybe they read that issue and they're like, man, or Kraven the Hunter. Kraven the Hunter gets no love. I mean, now he's getting a movie, but he's my guy. And I never see any of these sketch card artists doing them. There's low-hanging fruit. We all end up drawing them. Like if you're at a convention, Deadpool or Harley Quinn, I mean, I'm all day long. You see people drawing them. I'll get people that'll come up and they'll be like, hey, can you draw? And it'll be like some obscure character. And I'm like, yes, thank you. Yes. So that's where I look at it. I treat that as part of the planning process. I say, okay, have I done anything interesting lately with my posts that shows range? Or sometimes it'll just be at random. Like, oh, I need to do my post. I almost missed the time that I usually post. I'll do 2 Star Wars cards today, or I'll do, it's always like, if I were a fan, what would I want to see on my feed? If I were, looking at these, what fits the criteria? Do I have a theme for the week that just kind of inadvertently got built? So if I start off Marvel Monday with an Iron Man piece, and then Mutant Monday, which would be the same day, I posted, I don't know, Sunfire, for example. And I'm like, okay, were they ever in a comic together? What villain did they fight? Have I drawn that character? Do I have a card to post of that? And then sometimes if I'm on deadlines, it might be, I haven't shared from this set in a while. Maybe I'll do 5 or 6 cards from that set just to show various characters or a range. There's male and female characters, or there's more cartoons versus photorealism. So I definitely am cognizant of it, but more in trying to find like-minded individuals, like saying, okay, here, I may not be your favorite artist, but I might have been on a set that you liked, or, whatever have you. But at the same time, I'm just like you. Like I'm into all of these properties and these things, and there's a kinship there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, I love it, and I'm going to have to throw some obscure Spidey folk at you.
Do it.
Finish this, and just see if it's there. Your visual library that you have stored wherever your digital archive is, of the cards that you've drawn, must be thousands of cards deep by now. I'm assuming you've got it quite well organized, or is it?
It could be better.
Could be better. Yeah,
it could be
there's
better.
always room for improvement.
I've got a terabyte drive sitting. I know everyone can't see me, but you can. Right over my left shoulder. See that little blue light that's on there?
Yeah.
that's chock full of cards from various properties, sometimes stuff that I haven't shown people because I'll draw it and I'm like, it's only okay. And my wife will be like, just post it. You need to post everything. I've tried to get better about that, where I'm just posting everything because it might be someone's cup of tea. Maybe I felt like I didn't do that character justice, but somebody that's a fan of it goes, you know what? He didn't do terribly on that. Yeah, it looks like in my mind's eye, like we were talking about when I was a kid first encountering that character, that's what speaks to me. That's my favorite version. And you nailed it. You encapsulated it. That's a huge thing. That's an honor to have that happen. So I try and get better about it and not be so hypercritical, but I think all of us as human beings are that way, and artists in particular, we're our own worst critics. You're always like, well, who's going to comment something negative on this? Who's going to say this is garbage? Or you're at a con and somebody walks by and goes, nah, I'm going to keep walking. So you think about those things. You try not to, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't at least consider them or think about them.
Of course. Well, it happens. But if everyone liked the same thing, it'd be a very boring world.
Oh, yeah, super boring. I couldn't imagine. Exactly. Well, listen, Jason, you've been wonderful. Thank you. It's early for you. I know we started this at stupid o'clock, and it is only just past barely achievable o'clock now. So I don't know if you're a caffeine fan, but oh yeah, I've been sipping this whole time. I got my my thermos. Coffee. Good old black coffee. That is the fuel that makes the sketch cards happen.
Good man. Someone once asked me, no, what was it? No, I'm not going to go there. I was going to say something absolutely filthy, and I suddenly realised that I'd do the whole episode without dropping in that, I like my coffee like I like my women. without a penis. Anyway, I can't believe I just said that.
I too like my coffee that way. That's great.
I think Noren's still here. I'm not sure if Noren's still here, but I will say goodbye for the both of us as we kind of circle into that. So where can people find you on social media? What's your handles? Pimp yourself.
So Jason _artist or Montoya _Montoya artist. Let me get my own stuff right on Instagram. Jason Montoya artist on Facebook. Same handle on Twitter as well. Got several pages. For my publishing company, it's called Themis Comics. Lady Justice, like the balance, she's always holding the scales. That's where that came from. Cool. So like a balance between artwork and writing. So I've got various pages for that spread all out throughout the internet as well. Just about any social media you're looking for, I'm probably on it if you search for it. Every once in a while, here and again, I will sell the cards too. I'm pretty active on getting in different things and reaching out to people. And then commissions, always available for commissions. Message me, email me.
We'll put all those links in the tasting notes, including your MySpace profile, because everyone's still got a MySpace profile somewhere.
I think I do, yeah. I'm pretty sure I do still have a MySpace.
Mine's still there somewhere.
I don't know if I want to look at it right now. I probably thought those were the coolest graphics then, but
oh, goodness. If I looked at it,
the HTML to get it.
It would be like reading a diary that you wrote when you were a teenager. It'd be so embarrassing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I could do it.
Here's a tidbit for everybody we laugh at. I told my wife, I wish I had pictures of, because she's from, like I said, she's younger than me. She's from that era of New Kids on the Block or whatever. So I wish I had pictures from that summer of '89. I think my grandma lost them all. I had channels on the side of my head. I had the rat tail. And I had the bat signal on the back of my head. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I don't want pictures of those.
Wow.
Different Batman shirt every day of the summer until I started getting like Punisher and X-Men shirts. I was kind of an X-Men snob in the 80s because I was like, you don't read X-Men. The X-Men cometh. And I had the buttons on my jacket and the whole 9 yards. So
I love it.
I suddenly have an image of a self-portrait of you as a 1989 version of you on one of your cardstocks. That could be a good thing.
Could be. If I can do it justice, I got to get all the little strands of hair.
I love it. This could be a work in progress. Jason, sure. You've been fabulous. Thank you so much. I've loved this. I could have carried on talking about all sorts of obscure characters and pop culture stuff all day. Do you mind if we describe you as a pop culturalist?
Nope, I do not mind that in the slightest. In fact, I take it as a huge compliment.
Good. When that henceforth you shall be known as pop culturalist and avatar to every single type of property that you could possibly want on a sketch card.
Oh, I love it.
We'll get that on a t-shirt as well. Thank you, Jason.
All right.
Carry on. And do you know how we end off on our shows?
Yes, and want to make sure everyone remembers to enjoy collecting.
Thanks for listening to the Marvel Card Collectors podcast. Visuals and tasting notes for each episode can be found on our Facebook page. You can subscribe and leave us a voicemail via our home on anchor.fm/MCCP. We're also on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms. Please take a second to subscribe, like, and review our show wherever you get your podcasts. Our podcast can be found by Googling at the MCC Pod, which will also find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Our Facebook community is at MCCW, Marvel Card Collectors Worldwide, and MMC, Marvel Masterpieces Collectors. The great music we use is called Rocket Power by Kevin MacLeod. Thanks to the collectors, artists, and creators who support the Marvel Cards Fan Collective. We'll see you next time, and remember, it's a small hobby but a fun one. Make mine Marvel and enjoy collecting.